I want to officially welcome you to the launch of my new brand, Kids Should Stop Consuming Sugar. We have to change what is on option for them. In a world where sugary snacks are rife, how do we make smarter choices that satiate the snack but also fuel the body? Because they're not eating themselves into obesity. The parents are not making kids fat on purpose. They're not trying to make kids unhealthy. 1 in 4 children from 5 to 17 falls into this category, and these are creating lifelong health problems. Australia's cup of coffee has become Açaí, and it is quite addictive. I just couldn't bring myself to justify 70 grams of sugar in one serving. You're looking at about 600 calories before those nasty toppings go on top. It's almost like having a liquid version of sugar. Although it is called Açaí, I did some research into how much Açaí is in Açaí, and it was 8%. There's not much Açaí in Açaí. I wouldn't even call it Açaí, I call it dessert. This is why this product is so special. It's not just sugar-free. Every ingredient in it is organic. Taste was on point. Açaí pulp was premium. We're using 40% of it, and we've gotten rid of the artificial preservatives, have used natural ingredients, sweetened with erythritol and stevia. It's a nutritious option to redefine the way we snack and the way we look at food. So I want to invite you to join us in celebrating the launch of Açaí Zero. Welcome to the Diet Doctor podcast, where we discuss the science of nutrition and high performance, offering practical tools for everyday life. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode of the Diet Doctor podcast, an exciting episode, an episode that I did not think I would be doing ever, to be honest with you, because it's not something that I thought I would ever be talking about. And that is sugary snacks, empty calories. That topic I thought I'd be talking about, but I didn't think I'd be taking part in trying to revolutionize that industry. And in a world where where sugary snacks are rife, empty calories are rife, how do we make smarter choices that satiate the snack but also fuel the body? And I want to officially welcome you to the launch of my new brand, which is Açaí Zero. It's a nutritious option to redefine the way we snack and the way we look at food. And I want to start by talking about how this project came into fruition. And it started as a hobby, just something that I had purely the intention was to get kids to consume less sugar. That's all it was about. It wasn't I didn't expect it to be a giant business move or something that would, pay my bills overnight or, turn you into an overnight success. But the momentum that it has, that has snowballed since creating this product, which arrived from Brazil yesterday. Our container arrived from Brazil yesterday. Our very first 40-foot container of Açaí Zero arrived yesterday. Now, what is Açaí Zero? Why did we come up with it? And why is it so special? Now, I was talking to a friend of mine in a class that we study, and I'll tell you the origin of the story because it's quite interesting. We were sitting down in what we call in Arabic the Ijaza of Quran class. So it was a class that we do in a formal setting whereby we learn what's called the tajweed, the recitation of the Holy Quran. And I was sitting with a group of friends of mine that I went to uni with, and we all sat down and decided to take a day off work and dedicate that day to learning the Quran, learning the tafsir of it, the recitation, what it means, etc., with a little bit of Arabic grammar involved as well. Now, in that class, one of my friends and longtime friends and university colleague, we went to uni together. He was saying to me, we were talking about Açaí, and I was complaining about how long I had to wait to purchase one for my son. I allow him a couple of days a week to grab an Açaí, and usually that's after jiu-jitsu. So after earning, I would always say, if you're going to have Açaí these days is just rife with sugar. There's not much Açaí in Açaí, and it has copious amounts of sugar. But what struck me as quite strange is that Açai's been around for quite some time. I consumed it in 2004, when I was competing in the Brazilian national titles. I thought it was an ice cream truck and I was looking for some carbs. So I went over to this, what I thought was an ice cream truck, and asked for the menu, and it was just acai. That's all they had, and it was like in a little frozen cup. And you know those little frozen vanilla ice cream cups that you can purchase at the gas station with a little plastic spoon? Well, that's what it came in. And it had 2 little sachets that were optional that it came with. And the sachets are similar to the sachets that come in the packet of 2-minute noodles that have your little, grinded up vegetables and flavor and salt, etc. So these sachets had a little bit of, I think it was granola and some dried banana. And it was frozen. You had to wait for it to defrost a little bit. It was had a pungent taste, but it gave you quite a kick. It had quite a bit of, it gave you quite a bit of energy. And they said, take this, it's acai, you've never heard of it. And that was in 2004, 21 years ago today. And since coming back, I was involved at a franchise level in a company called Nutrition Station. So we were serving acai bowls. I had my own cafes in Parramatta, Bankstown, and Coogee. Coogee was my flagship, and we sold acai bowls. I didn't enjoy selling acai bowls because the amount of sugar in them was, quite high, even though it was allegedly organic sugar cane. And it just took a lot of time for my staff to create a bowl. It would ruin and destroy some industrial blenders that I had that cost thousands of dollars because you're essentially trying to blend up something that's not quite defrosted yet. And then my staff would spend 15 minutes trying to decorate this bowl, make it look pretty with goji berries and chia seeds and all the other things that are good for you, like cacao nibs. And that was acai. It would consume 20 minutes of my staff's hour, and I would rather you ordered a steak instead. Now, fast forward to 2025, where I'm waiting 35 minutes in winter to get acai from a truck at night on the way home, driving my son from jiu-jitsu from one suburb back home. And en route, there's an acai truck, and I pull over in this gas station, waiting up to 35 minutes. I had the timer on, and I sent my friend from class, I sent him a little video about just showing the number of people waiting in the queue and a photo of how long it took to get this serving and how busy it was. And I said, this is nuts. All for a treat that is pseudo-healthy. It's not really healthy at all. And I remember he said to me, whoever can get this right, whoever can make acai healthy, he didn't say sugar-free, he said healthy. And I'll tell you the difference in a moment. He said, they'll be onto something. I said, I'm confident, like I'm not confident in a lot of things. I can't change a tire, but I'm confident that I can take a recipe and make a healthy version of it without compromising the taste and the flavor and texture. If anything, improving it. And that was one of the skills I acquired sitting in my kitchen, spending hours upon hours in the kitchen, coming up with these healthy menus that tasted great for companies like Nutrition Station and my own cafes. Now, I started to look at break down and really decipher the ingredients that were in there. And I was absolutely shocked at what acai contained. I'm surprised we're allowed to call it acai. I think only in Australia it's considered organic, because the ingredients were anything but healthy. And although it is called acai and we assume that we are eating predominantly acai pulp, the acai berry, I did some research into how much acai is in acai, and it was the common number that popped up, the most common digit that popped up was 8%. Some companies used up to 14%. I think there was one company overseas who, on a small scale, supplied some of the organic grocery outlets in the States like Whole Foods, but they made acai for the home, not in the 10-kilo buckets that we use today. It would be too expensive. They had up to 40% acai. And then I started to look at whether there was a difference in the acai from different regions in Brazil, or was there different categories of acai? And the reason for that is I will think about how fruit is sold in the grocery store, in the markets, vegetables. There are category, we call them category A and category B, like a B grade tomato, for instance, and an A grade tomato. They wouldn't be the same price. An organic blueberry or a high quality batch would not be sold for the same price. Cherries are a prime example, right? Cherries could be, $50 a box, or they could be $200 a box, depending on the quality of the cherry. And blueberries are the same. So there were 3 categories of blueberries. There was like a regular grade pulp, which is what they use when they're mass producing in the 10-kilo buckets. Because we have to understand there are over 20 Açaí outlets, not necessarily Açaí stores, but 20 stores that sell Açaí per suburb in Sydney, over 20. That's a lot. And to supply that type of volume, it's not economically viable to have more than, or to use anything other than a regular grade Açaí pulp, because they're not eating the Açaí straight off the branch. It's part of a recipe. So there's the regular grade pulp, which is what's used for mass production, because you got to remember a container contains a couple of tons of Açaí. Then there's what's called a medium grade pulp, and then there's what's called a premium pulp. And I found that from research, only I think one company, again the company that doesn't mass produce but supplies smaller packets for home delivery or for sale in retail, in grocery, that sold premium pulp at a high percentage. The ones that were at a high percentage were a low grade, and the ones that were at a low percentage were premium, but they weren't mass produced. So I did some digging, and it took a lot of time, a lot of research as to what it would require to use a premium pulp, the number one pulp that exists on the planet, at a percentage above 40%. You can't use much more than 45. Sometimes you'll hit close to 50, but you can't use more than that because you need water, you need other ingredients to create the product. And when you defrost this thing and you turn it into a liquid to pour it down a soft serve machine, because it's got to be liquefied, if it's got more Açaí than that, it will not liquefy. It'll stay gluggy and it will not be functional, or you could not use it in a soft serve machine. So we got to the bottom of who has a premium grade pulp, who will allow us to use, over 40%, 45, 50% pulp. That was one obstacle, and there were many, and that's why it took so long. The other obstacles were that current Açaí has many, many chemicals in it. Preservatives to give it a long shelf life. Artificial colors, artificial flavors, 50 to 70 grams of sugar in a large serving of Açaí, or even a medium serving of Açaí. That's before the nasty toppings go on top. You're looking at about, 400, 500, 600 calories before those nasty toppings go on top. The nasty toppings that were being served on top, Nutella, Biscoff, and all these other things. When if you have a really good quality Açaí, and I remember from consuming it in the past, I haven't consumed Açaí in a long time, until recently. It's got a lot of chemicals, a lot of sugars, a lot of everything that you don't want to consume, and just a small percentage of organic Açaí. And what was alarming is that in a country like Australia, which is heavily regulated, we are not as strict as we are in other departments as we should be with food. We are quite loose when it comes to food, to the point where a lot of brands that are considered to be organic would not be allowed to be titled organic or to use the term organic overseas or anywhere outside of Australia, as a matter of fact. And I wanted to change that. I wanted to get rid of every chemical one at a time, every bad emulsifier, those bonding agents that, ruin the lining and destroy your gut health, cause IBS, and there's correlations to autoimmune diseases and an array of issues. And from the gut stems issues of the mind and cognitive disorders and physiological disorders, not to mention type 2 diabetes and cholesterol, which more than 2/3 of Australia suffers from. Over 65% of Australia suffers from obesity, from being overweight, which is very, very alarming compared to the statistics that we've spoken about in some of the healthier countries, like South Korea being close to 4%. It's ridiculous. And instead of cracking down on these issues, instead we are allowed to get away with murder in Australia when it comes to food regulations. So we just have to have a small amount of organic ingredients to call something organic. Even third world countries, this is what I didn't realize until I was invited to the Gulf Food Expo recently. Even third world countries have stricter regulations when it comes to food and how they are labeled and how transparent you are when it comes to labeling your food than Australia. I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked. What is deemed organic here would not be deemed organic in a third world country. Preservatives, colors. And we have to remember that things like coloring that are cool colors like greens, blues, purples, they are derived from petroleum. So they sit in your stomach for an incredibly long time, and they affect the nutrient absorption from everything that you eat thereafter. So it was quite an arduous process to try and deconstruct every ingredient and not just try and swap it. It's one thing to swap it with an ingredient that is one for one and replace a good thing with a thing that is not bad for you. Notice I didn't say healthy, I said not bad for you. To replace an ingredient with something that is bad for you, with an ingredient that is not bad for you, that's one challenge. It's an entirely different challenge to replace an ingredient that is bad for you with an ingredient that is actually good for you, not just neutral or sits on the fence or not bad. Because there are things that are neither bad nor good, right? And there are things that are extremely good for you, like antioxidants. It's a different journey altogether to take something that's bad, remove it, and replace it with something that's good while maintaining the taste and the texture. That is the biggest thing. Either the taste, with early sampling, either the taste was on point, the texture was a little bit off, the texture was on point, the taste was off. So, and after, getting it right, or 90% right, taste was on point, acai pulp was premium, we're using 40% of it, and we've gotten rid of the artificial preservatives. You have used only natural ingredients, sweetened with erythritol and stevia. Then we get to the last obstacle was the emulsifier, because you need a bonding agent. It's like oil and water. You can't mix oil and water, but you add a chemical to oil and water, you can get those two ingredients to go from being heterogeneous, separated, right, oil and water separated, to homogeneous, whereby they are one substance. You can do that if you use chemicals. And they did ask, I remember being asked, can we just use an ingredient to help with the bonding? And I was adamant to not compromise. That delayed the project, I think, by about 8 months, and eventually we got there. Eventually we were able to sample a product. And I'm not saying it's the best tasting acai because it's my product. I got some of the biggest critics that eat acai on a daily basis. I got people to sample the product that eat acai every day, because I'm going to base my judgment on, it's going to be biased by default because it's my product, and I'm going to be inclined to say it's nice, although it may not be as good as I think it is. And the other fact, the most important fact, is that I don't eat it. Like the last time I had it was a long time ago, and it wasn't in a soft serve, it was a bowl. So I need somebody that consumes it in a soft serve form on a regular basis. And I've got some of the biggest critics and people that own franchises and stores, etc. And their reaction was, out of hundreds of samples, this is the best product that I have tasted. They didn't know about the health benefits yet. If I deconstruct the product for you, it's premium pulp, large quantity, organic. Every ingredient in it is organic. It's been certified organic, and it's got FDA approval and approval from with 10 certifications from different places all around the world. So no matter where this product goes, it is organic. The acai we consume here is organic in Australia. As soon as it leaves Australia, it's not even organic in Brazil. The Brazilian acai that we consume is organic in Australia and not even deemed organic in Brazil. That's how poor the quality of the ingredients are, masked by sugar and a whole bunch of other things. Now, if you're having it as a treat, that's fine. A treat is a treat. But if you're having it on a regular basis and you've got this, mentality that I'm doing my body justice because I'm consuming something that is a natural source of nutrition, and it's filled with antioxidants and phytonutrients, and it's going to fight oxidative stress, it's good for anti-aging, it's good for inflammation, it's good for everything. Rubbish. That's absolute nonsense. So we eventually, and this was a journey, and a lot of people tried, a lot of factories overseas tried and said, we can't do this. It's too difficult. The ingredients are too expensive. To make tons of this product using the ingredients that you're asking for, it's not economically viable. Your product is going to cost 400% more than any other product. And I can't come in at a market price that is 400% above everyone else. I have to be competitive. So they didn't see the point in it. And the point in it for me, why I was so passionate about it is one of the fastest growing trends when it comes to what we consume that I've seen in modern times. Ridiculous. The queue, 35 minutes, an hour. The Uber orders that go out of the stores. I think it's Australia's cup of coffee. They say, they say something similar about America's cup of coffee being another nasty ingredient. I won't say which one it is, but Australia's cup of coffee has become Açaí. So I'm really excited that not only have we used copious amounts of Açaí, premium grade Açaí, every organic ingredient, even the colouring that we have used has been extracted. It's an antioxidant that's been extracted from another fruit to give it that colouring. But that colouring that you're consuming from this Açaí Zero product, even the colouring itself helps with inflammation, helps fight chronic disease, helps with fight oxidative stress, helps protect your cells from degenerative diseases because it's an antioxidant. Even the colouring. The emulsifiers, gotten rid of all that, put essential fats in there, good fats in there. And it has 5 grams of fibre, something that Australia is very short on, and that's the reason why we're so sick and we have gut issues. The countries that have that consume large amounts of fibre or more fibre and vegetables and fruits, and they are the healthy countries we spoke about in an episode prior to this, like Sweden, South Korea and Spain, naturally consuming more fibre, and because they eat whole foods and they are healthier. If you look at America and Australia, only 5% of the country consumes the recommended daily fibre intake. And that's what we need for gut health, and we don't do that. And the reason why we don't do that is we eat a lot of packaged items. We eat processed foods that are in packaged items from the grocery store. Packaged items don't have a lot of fibre, because if they do have a lot of fibre, it decreases the shelf life of the product. They have to reduce the fibre to increase the shelf life to make it more attractive to the grocery franchises and chains. Because if I come to a grocery store the size of Woolies or Coles and I've got a shelf life of 3 weeks, why would they want my product? It's going to be very hard to get it over the line, and it's not going to be a very attractive transaction. But if I've got a product that can sit on the shelf for 5 years, then that's a product that's attractive. It's a win-win product and everyone makes money. Not healthy though. However, the shelf life is high because the fibre is low. We don't consume much fibre. Whole foods have a lot of fibre, but they've got a low shelf life. So we've got 5 grams of fibre in there, still got a decent shelf life because we've used natural preservative agents, and there are natural preservatives, and 2 grams net of carbs. So you've got 7 grams of carbs, 5 grams of fibre. Little maths lesson for those of you that don't know, but if you've got 7 grams of carbs, 5 grams of fibre, 7 take away 5, 2 grams. You've got 2 grams of carbs net, no insulin spike, low glycemic index, even though it is a substance that the current Açaí spikes your insulin like you're having a can of Coke, or 2 cans of Coke rather. No insulin spike. That is why it is different. And I had to do this episode. I had to explain, because the masses, when this product was initially launched or the trailers for it were launched, the common denominator in the comments was, yeah, sugar-free exists everywhere. It's easy, just add an artificial sweetener. If that was the case, I could have made this product in a day. You can get sugar-free Açaí anywhere, but the taste, according to the store owners, I've been told, is absolutely horrendous in comparison to the regular Açaí. It doesn't blend very well. It doesn't go through the soft serve machines well because of the artificial sweetener, namely aspartame, and it's still got all the chemicals in it. So what's the point if something is sugar-free but is bad for you? Sugar-free doesn't mean good for you. Like, let's look at Coke Zero, right? Coke Zero has no sugar. Is it good for you? No, it's an absolute disaster. Avocados are full of fat. Are they bad for you? No. You've got fruits. Fruits have fructose, but they've also got fiber and minerals and vitamins and antioxidants and phytonutrients. Because they've got sugar, are they bad for you? No, they're good for you. Honey, if you look at the label of honey, pure sugar. Bad for you? No, it doesn't even spike your insulin. Dates have sugar, but also fiber and minerals. Not bad for you. So things that are sugar-free are not necessarily good for you, and things that are high in fat or contain carbohydrates or sugar, it does not mean they are bad for you. We have to get that ideology completely out of our head. Most of the things in the health food aisle are bad for you. So this is why this product is so special. It's not just sugar-free. Chemicals, almost a dozen chemicals have been removed. And we are a society that consumes chemicals and preservatives like they are one of the 5 building blocks that we're supposed to be consuming on a daily basis. Everything we eat has preservatives and chemicals and artificial ingredients and so on and so on. And that is why we are sick. 85% of physiological and cognitive diseases exist because of the way we eat, the poor choices of food that we make. So this is why it's exciting. And subhanAllah, like I said, I remind myself of this over and over. Innal a'mala binniyat. The deed is based on the intention. The intention was not to create a global movement and try and change the way people look at acai all over the world and wake up to the fact that it's not what you think it is, and not just have it as an option like you've got Coke and you've got Coke Zero. Although you can look at it that way. You can have the regular acai as a treat, and Açaí Zero you can have every day. But if something is better for you, has all the goodness for you, and actually tastes better, then you don't have to compromise. And that's why it's just, I did not expect to be able to get it done. Almost tapped out a couple of times because it proved to be quite expensive. Sold almost everything I own because I just got stuck on the fact that adamant that this can be done, Sold 2 vehicles and my Harley Davidson to get this over the line. But alhamdulillah, it was done. And I think it's gained a tremendous amount of traction. And I got invited recently to the Gulf Food Expo in Dubai and presented there. I didn't expect to present. I was just given a portion of a booth. I couldn't afford to get my own booth. A booth there, can cost up to $500,000. And there's a couple of year waiting list to get into the biggest food expo on planet Earth. And last minute, I was asked to present on a platform where you've got the world's best chefs presenting. You've got Khabib Nurmagomedov presenting his Gorilla Energy drink, and I'm like, what am I going to talk about? I can't summarize what I just said to you in the last 20-something minutes, close to half an hour. I think I was given maybe less than 5 minutes. So I just spoke about why kids should stop consuming sugar and how we are going to raise healthy kids in an unhealthy world. And in order to do that, we have to change what is on option for them, because they're not eating themselves into obesity on purpose. The parents are not making kids fat on purpose. The teachers are not making kids fat on purpose. They're not trying to make kids unhealthy. No one is, but they are. So what we have as resources has to change. That's what's important. And I made that the focus, not the product. The product was being served while I was speaking, but I made that the focus. And the traction that created from all the other booths from all the countries around the world, countries that I can't even pronounce, and they would come to the booth the next day and say, we need this in our country. We've just started selling acai in our country. I had somebody from India come over and say, we have acai in our country, but we don't have acai stores. We sell it via cloud kitchens through a delivery mechanism, which is, I don't think they have Uber, they have something called Zomato. I think that's a food rating app here, but it's a delivery service there. Russia, Kazakhstan, Japan, the United States, Canada. My concern is Australia first. We are very, very sick. So if we can change the way we have what we consume and then what the kids consume, because if we're having it, and I know many, many adults, friends my age that are addicted to acai and having it every day, And it is quite addictive. I didn't realize how addictive it was until I was at the Gulf Food Expo for 5 days. I was meant to be there for 3, extended for 5. And I was sampling the product and I was having the little samples on a daily basis. And then when I came back, I really started craving it. I even purchased it once, put it in the freezer. I didn't end up consuming it, had a mouthful of it, but I just couldn't bring myself to justify 70 odd grams of sugar in one serving. It just didn't make sense. I couldn't justify it. And it's because it's a soft serve, it's almost like having a liquid version of sugar. And those of you who don't know, drinking sugar or having sugar in a highly bioavailable form, like ice cream, is not the same as eating sugar in a solidified state. The way it affects your insulin is not the same. You get a tremendous insulin spike when sugar is in a liquid state, especially a beverage. And a soft serve, by the time it goes past your esophagus, is pretty much liquefied into a beverage. And the way that spikes your insulin is ridiculous. It can make you type 2 diabetic very quickly. And everything that you eat thereafter can be stored as fat, because insulin is like a window of opportunity for fat to be stored. You could eat something that doesn't contain fat. I'll give you an example. If I drink a can of Coca-Cola and my insulin spikes, then I have some sushi with white rice. White rice is a high glycemic index carbohydrate. Doesn't have fat, but it's just all carbs. The body will convert the carbs to fat during the storage process. And that is the problem. That is where the problem lies. So drinking sugar is far worse than eating it. I'm going to give you some statistics here to wrap up. The World Health Organization says that that on a global scale, obesity has tripled since 1975. There are 1.9 billion adults that are overweight. That is 1/4 of planet Earth that is overweight. In Australia, 67% are affected. That's over 2/3. 2/3 is, for those maths nerds, it's 66.6 recurring. So 67%, over 2/3 of the country is overweight. 12.5 million people face obesity and health-related issues. 39 million children under the age of 5 were overweight or obese in 2020, under the age of 5. 1 in 4 children from 5 to 17 falls into this category. And these are creating lifelong health problems. I remember once when I was doing regular segments with Triple M. The Triple M back then, the hosts were, you had Matt Guy, MG, you had Gus Wallen and Matty Johns. And I remember I was in the gym and it was a live episode. It was live and they called me and said, Moodi, can you go somewhere quiet? We want to ask you a question. And I did. I went somewhere quiet and they said, kid just passed away, 8 years of age, and he died in his sleep, not enough oxygen going to his brain. I think I was tired in between sets and I wasn't thinking. And my first reaction was, what country? Because I didn't expect this to be Australia. And I said, it's Triple M, so of course it's here. I was a kid in Mount Druitt. And I was absolutely shocked. I said, who's at fault? Like, the kid didn't know what he was consuming, didn't do it on purpose. The parents, the teachers, no one. It's not part of the curriculum. Who's at fault? I said, how much did he weigh? They said 80 kilos. I don't weigh 80 kilos. That's a lot of weight for a kid who's 7 or 8 years of age. No oxygen going to the brain, dies in the sleep. Everyone's blaming themselves. It's the system. The system. There is no nutrition in the curriculum. We don't know how to read labels. It's not taught in our schools. Adults don't know how to read labels. The average person doesn't know what maltodextrin is. The average person cannot read the ingredients and the ingredient lists on our food items or pseudo foods. Just because it's edible, it doesn't make it food. It's getting longer and longer and longer. So I found that it was very, very important to embark on this project because this is something that has been a staple product for a lot of people that they consume on a day-to-day basis. So if you consume something every single day, like you have water every day, you have yourself a cup of coffee every day, You want to make sure that the thing that you consume on a regular basis, not on a periodical basis, something that you consume daily, imagine that thing that you consume daily was actually good for you. 2/3 of Australia gets their antioxidants from coffee, not from fruit. So although coffee can have or can cause issues if you consume too much coffee and not enough water, if Australia, considering that 2/3 of Australia gets their antioxidants from coffee, not from fruit, if Australians were to cut out their cup of coffee every day, we'd have a far less healthier Australia. So the answer to that issue is, if it's something that you consume on a day-to-day basis, you must make sure that it is quality. You drink water every day. Make sure your source of water is good. If you eat meat every day, make sure your quality of meat is good. If you eat acai every day, make sure the quality is good. And acai berries are a very, very powerful antioxidant. They are even higher in antioxidants than blueberries. Out of all the berries, raspberries, blackberries, strawberries, and blueberries are the highest in antioxidants. And the color is a giveaway. When something is really dark in color, it's more nutrient rich because the color comes from the antioxidant and phytonutrient content. That's what makes it so dark. The acai berry is even higher in antioxidants by 30% than the blueberry. And if you're consuming that on a regular basis, you want to make sure that what you are consuming is really what it's meant to be. This fights oxidative stress and inflammation that is causing physiological diseases, chronic diseases, cognitive diseases, and even behavioral diseases in our children. Type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular risk. 1.2 million Australians have diabetes, and there is a direct correlation with diabetes and obesity. 1 in 5 children in Australia have diabetes. Now, if you're going to incorporate something that is healthier into your day-to-day routine over something that is toxic, you're going to feel and see the difference. I had one individual come up to me after the mosque prayer. It was the Isha prayer, the late night prayer. And this individual owns an acai shop. He said something that I don't like being asked after Ramadan, after fasting. You shouldn't be gaining weight in Ramadan. How do I lose the weight I gained in Ramadan? It's antithetical to what fasting is really about. You're supposed to be not eating as much and empathizing with those that are less fortunate. Anyway, he said, I gained weight in Ramadan. I said, how'd you gain weight? He said, eating acai every day, every night, because I've got a store. That should not be the case. We can put that to a stop. Cognitive health is on a decline. Obesity, people that are obese are more likely to experience Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's, MS. So there's a direct correlation with obesity in every other disease that you can think of, even cognitive diseases. So how much you weigh and your body composition in particular, if you've got a body composition that favors fat over muscle, you are more likely to suffer from degenerative diseases of the mind as you get older. And I have family members and friends who have elders. We have elders in the family that are suffering from Alzheimer's. It is a horrible disease. And there are various different types of degenerative diseases of the mind, and Alzheimer's is only one. It's only one form, and there are many of them. This has to come to a stop. So I want to invite you to join us in celebrating the launch of Açaí Zero. And I want you to share your creative ideas with this product. There are so many toppings that you can put on top of acai that are good for you. Granola, fruits like bananas and blueberries and strawberries, honey, even organic maple syrup. Believe it or not, organic maple syrup is good for you. It's rich in zinc. Zinc is good for your hormones. Zinc is good for sleep. Zinc is good for testosterone. Zinc is good for increasing muscle mass and helping with your metabolic issues. That's maple syrup. So you don't have to sacrifice your taste. We are putting sauces on top of these foods that are not only predominantly palm oil and filled with sugars and fats. But I don't know how many of you know this, but the toppings that go on top, if that was real peanut butter if that was real, peanut butter is another good topping, the good stuff. But if it was real peanut butter, if it was just Nutella, if it was just Biscoff, the moment that it sits or lands on the acai, it would freeze. It would go hard because of the temperature of the acai. It would solidify the Nutella and the peanut butter. So what do they do to keep that topping a liquid? In those little pump bottles that they use to put the topping on, it is 50% canola oil and the other 50% is the Nutella, the Biscoff or the peanut butter. So not only do you have these nasty ingredients on top of your acai, I wouldn't even call it acai, I call it dessert. Not only do you have this nasty ingredient on top of your dessert, but you've got 50% of canola oil. And canola oil, oils in general, on average, a tablespoon contains about 100 calories. That's a lot. You go from approximately 400 or 500 calories with an acai. With the toppings, it can exceed 1,200, 1,300 calories for something that's meant to be a snack, not half your daily caloric intake. This is more than half most people's daily caloric intake, 12 to 1,300 calories. With this product, 59 calories, 2 grams net of carbohydrates, no preservatives, no colors, no artificial ingredients whatsoever. So 0 nasties, but also 0 compromise on taste, texture, flavor. I'm excited to introduce it to you and get your feedback, and please share it, if anything, but to create a healthier society. And that's what it's about. And I encourage those who are a little bit younger and listening to this to try and use this as an example, and maybe you can be innovative enough to change another food item that we eat on a daily basis, something else that we consume that is bad for you. And maybe you can be the person that innovates and tries and succeeds in making that item that we consume on a daily basis and have become addicted to. Maybe you be the next person to make something that is bad for you healthy. Until next time, thank you very much for listening. And this, although it was or sounded like a shameless plug, it came from a genuine place, and it came, and I was very, very transparent and vulnerable in telling you how it came into fruition and how it almost didn't. So I hope you share this. I hope you try it, and I look forward to getting your feedback. Thank you very much. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.